Yeah, that's kind of bull. But then again, the AP top 25 in the voting, it almost seems like they make it a mess on purpose to cause this conversation. And then when it gets to the time for the actual selection, they're like, no, we were just. This is why how it's supposed to be.
This is why you need a 16-team playoff. Because for anyone to say that both Penn State and Ohio State are not deserving of playoff is a fool.
Yeah. Anyone to say you can make the argument. This is exactly why this is going to force the argument, because even with Georgia and Alabama, it's so difficult to think that two conferences are going to get the two playoff teams.
But they're the only two deserving.
Rightfully so. Those four teams deserve to be in there battling it out for the title.
Seriously, congratulations, Clemson. You lost to Syracuse. You barely beat. No, they won other games pretty handily.
Right, but now they're running into injuries and stuff like that. But the thing is, I don't know if I can. 16 maybe, but definitely 8. We should, without a doubt, be doing 18.
16 teams, and here's my argument for that. Get rid of non-conference schedule. Play one non-conference game.
Yeah, no, we've had
and then straight into conference.
It could. I have no problem with them doing that, but at least take the step. At the very least, take the step and increase it to 8.
The other option, which I'd be fine with, take all of the teams, put them into 4 conferences, North, East, South, West. Make 4 super conferences, take 4 teams from each conference.
12 teams?
No, 16.
4. Oh, yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Not 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 squared.
Yeah, and if you want to split each of them up into 4 regions, take the best from each region. However you want to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, they could do it that way, and I just think that this is until they realize that expansion will not only benefit them, but it's also going to benefit the game itself, because there are teams that could get that one loss. What kind of damage do you think potentially Wisconsin could do to other teams if they were going to give a slot, even if it's the 8th slot or the 16th slot?
I think. Well, let's just go through the top 16 right now. All right. Teams that I think Wisconsin could beat out of the top 16. Michigan State, yes. Washington State, yes. NC State, yes. Virginia Tech, yes. Washington, yes. Oklahoma State, yes. Oklahoma, yes. Notre Dame, yes. Miami, yes. Clemson. This is the top 7 are where they run into problems. Clemson gives them a problem. Ohio State gives them a problem. They give themselves a problem, I guess. TCU, Georgia, Penn State, and Alabama are where they run into the issues.
You say that, though, but in that top 7, those teams could potentially give them issues and run into it. But is there any argument that they wouldn't be able to compete?
No.
They could compete against any of the top 7.
Yeah, maybe not Alabama.
They could run into the bandsaw, and that's possible. But more likely than not, they will be in the game. They're not going to get shellacked.
Can I see them beating Clemson? Absolutely. Can I see them beating... Okay, since they are in the... We'll take the top 8. That's Miami, Clemson, Ohio State, Wisconsin, TCU, Georgia, Penn State, Alabama. We'll do a normal-style playoff really quickly. And 1 second. So they start TCU, Wisconsin. Who wins? Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I can win that.
Then we got Georgia versus Ohio State. I'll give that to Ohio State. So we've got...
that'd be a good game, though.
We've got Ohio State, Wisconsin moving on. We've got Penn State versus Clemson. Penn State moves on. And Alabama, Miami. Alabama moves on. So that means it would be Alabama, Ohio State. I think Alabama would win that. Penn State, Wisconsin. I think Penn State wins that. But then they're 1 game away from the championship. So, I mean, seriously, it's semantics.
Yeah, I mean, even if you had Georgia in there, if Georgia loses to Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Wisconsin, Penn State, great games.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you have Wisconsin at least in there giving a fighter's chance to actually continue. Because, I mean, realistically, they could go undefeated, lose the Big Ten championship game, and then they're not, at that point, they're not going to get into the top 4.
The only other thing that they can do to make it as fair as possible, take the five power conferences. I know you disagree with the Big 12. Take the 5 power conferences.
The 4.5 power conference.
The winner of each power conference makes it to the playoff. And that is the winner of the championship game. Now that all 5 have championship games. The one that's voted number 1 overall, which in this case would be Alabama, would get the bye. And so then you'd have, let's say, Penn State, because I'm going to argue that they win. Just so that we don't argue Wisconsin. Okay. We'll say Wisconsin was the Big 10. The Big 12, we'll go with TCU.
TCU right now.
Okay. Then you got the ACC. You think Clemson, I think Virginia Tech. So we'll go Boston College. Just throwing it out there. And then the Pac-12 right now looks like Washington State. Maybe Washington.
Yeah, it's one of the Washingtons. It's not USC like we all saw coming.
Yeah, and then give Alabama the bye. Let those four play. Alabama plays the lowest team remaining. That's the only other fair way to do it.
Either way, there's no argument. It needs to be expanded.
Yeah, the only thing I have a problem with, like, say, 16 or something like that, is that when you look at the top 25, and you were just talking about what teams Wisconsin could beat and going up the list, it's like there's a distinct difference between 1 through 14, and then the rest of it. And then if you add in 16, take for instance the Penn State-Ohio State game that's going to happen this weekend. There's big hype and big implications of what's going to happen. But if you had the 16 teams, it really wouldn't hold as much weight because you already know those two teams are going.
Well, at that point, the argument would be, well, then the other teams just need to be better.
No, that's true. But there's so much distinct.
Right, but
there's
at 16,
a spectrum of talent between.
But at 16, that's really where the cutoff usually lies between teams that are one-loss teams that are still in the top 16, but they're not going to get in because of that one loss.
See, I guess
they won't be in that argument.
And this is me being new to college football, like I've said. I feel like a good happy medium of like 8 is okay because you wouldn't have this washed down like what. Okay, so let me ask you: would you ever see any team from like say, if we're taking 16 from like 12 down? Do you ever see them winning a national championship?
Yes.
Yes.
Currently, Washington, a one-loss Washington. Why not?
I think that coming down the line when it cuts to the end, where you're playing
Virginia
these
Tech
powerhouses that have been in the top 5, top 10 for the whole year, then yeah, you're going to be playing teams that you haven't seen the talent level that they have.
A one-loss Virginia Tech. Yeah, I can see it.
But do you think that Virginia Tech could beat Alabama for a national championship?
Why not?
I don't see it happening. I think they should deserve a chance, and I think they do need to expand. But I don't see it being 16.
So then you're
happen because the thing is that may not happen.
You lose excitement.
You don't though, because what if?
No, you don't. You get better football. You don't
dropping out, and now the bracket is completely changed in the next round.
Here's what you eliminate by doing this: Alabama versus Mercer late in the season. Which would you rather see? Expanded playoff or cupcake?
Expanded playoff.
No,
Expanded playoff.
Well, that's the other thing.
I totally get that, but I feel like 16 is way too much because it's like let's let everybody in. You're only cutting off half the top 25.
Because if you're at 16,
there's 130 teams. 16 is fair.
If we're talking, some people are making the argument that you push the whole top 25 into the last few weeks of it making a playoff.
Or how about this? Just make the entire season a playoff. If you lose, you're done.
That's pretty much.
If you lose, you're done.
No
more games.
You can take a loss. That's what makes this college. What I enjoy about the college football right now is that you have those games where if you don't win, you've like significantly dropped your chances of making the playoffs. And that's thrilling.
At this point, one loss Alabama makes it, one loss Penn State makes it, one loss Georgia makes it.
Yeah.
And that's just because it can break down that way. But what he says is right. There are some teams that you lose, that's it. You're not going to get where you need. You're not even going to be able to get into striking distance. Which, again, I say the compromise, start with the 8. See what happens with the playoff and how it shakes out with 8. If it's working, if there's a drive to increase it, maybe look into it there. Yeah, but at least open the idea to the possibility that number 8
Michigan
Alabama,
could have beat Alabama.
Yeah, that could
Michigan
happen.
could have beat Alabama. Mm-hmm. Their defense last year was so damn good, they could have beaten Alabama.
And that could have been an upset in the first round.
Absolutely.
And I feel like there's a better chance of an 8 walking away with upset early and almost, taking less matches all the way up and taking a national championship as opposed to a 16.
How great is this, though? Last year, not even kidding, the Big Ten deserved to have 4 teams in the playoff with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Again, the ESPN, for whatever reason, loves, and the nation seems to love.
Tim B says, make the NCAA football season a double elimination tourney. Lose 2 sucks to be you.
With how many teams?
I'm guessing all of it. Because, no, at this point, you're kind of right with the, top 16, because you got undefeated South Florida, undefeated Central Florida at 17 and 18. So they undefeated would deserve to be in. Mm-hmm. But the argument is we're only at week 8. If they go undefeated through week, through week 12, then they would be in the top 16.
Although that being said, this is exactly what the NCAA wants. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about this, who's in, who's not, but I don't see
and that's
any
my point.
valid
you put 16,
reason.
you don't have that argument.
You do, because you have UCF, or you have UCF and Southern Florida, who arguably undefeated should have an opportunity.
In this situation.
Does it mean that you're going to win against Alabama? Probably not, but you're in, so let's see what you do.
But you know what? Western Michigan deserved a chance last year.
But you take away some of the excitement of the main matchups where
little.
Prior to, it could have been Michigan, Ohio State, losers not making the playoffs.
Right, but here's the problem.
Okay, so then do 2 separate 1 through 8s. Seed them like you do in the basketball tournament. You got 1 through 8, 1 through 8. You got an Eastern Regional, Western Regional, whatever you want to do. Go 1 through 8, 1 through 8. However you want to do it. Take the top 2 teams. Take Alabama and Penn State and make them the number 1.
The argument that is being made here that I do like is the fact that there are teams, like we were talking about, Western Michigan last year went undefeated.
They blew people out.
They deserve at least to have their hat in the ring. Okay, you went undefeated. You didn't play nearly the caliber of talent. Let's see how you do against Alabama.
I just think that...
You want a shot at it? You got to take down the big boy.
I'm not disagreeing in the fact that we need more than 4, but I think it's more realistic to have 8 or 12.
Well, how does 12... 12 doesn't break down.
No, well, you'd have to have bye.
I hate bye because that's really a detriment.
No, I agree. But
the Big Ten doing their championship game so early, and not only that, and then Ohio State not even playing in the championship game, and then throwing them against Clemson, who played 4 weeks later.
I just think that if they do get to 16, which to a degree, if the competitive nature's there and everything, it's good, then so be it. But I think it would take a lot to get there where we're sitting at 4.
I'm just so sick of seeing like Penn State at Kent State or Kent State at Penn State. No, have them schedule the one game against Pitt, and then you do conference play. All right, you get your one quote unquote warm up game, but you don't get to just play these nobodies. Like, what makes you think that that's okay? It's not. Like I said,
like Howard.
Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. You played against a team that's not even
a decade.
Yeah. I mean, even if you want to schedule it a one cupcake, because Appalachian State did beat Michigan. Yeah. Okay, and then James Madison did beat Virginia Tech and all that. Whatever, that's fine. But it's bogus that like the first 3 weeks of college football you don't get to watch actual college football. You watch teams beat up on defenseless players. And especially
the first week, they like to load up that first week. Sometime.
Especially in the
they have been now. Yeah. They're promoting a more competitive first week to kick off the football season.
Especially in the SEC, where the second to last week you play against a non-conference opponent. Some teams like South Carolina play Clemson. Florida plays against Florida State. But then, like I said, you got like Auburn who plays Mercer, Alabama who plays Georgia State. Like what? No, the end of your season should be difficult.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, that I do.
Then they also get 4 cupcake games because of that.
Typical Alabama.
That's the entire SEC.
Well, yeah, but the SEC always gets so much praise. Where the talent and the level of play is better in the Big Ten. It's just they're not so boisterous about it. The SEC loves to tell you about how good the SEC is. The Big Ten doesn't care. You just play. Let's find out who's for real and who's not.
Yeah,
that's the mentality. It's 2 different mentalities. The SEC is much more showy. Big Ten is more of that old school punch you in the mouth style football.
Which is funny because SEC football is boring.
Well,
it is.
Most people down south are boring.
Think about it. There was an Auburn versus Mississippi State game a while back where the score was 3-2.
Jesus.
They had an LSU versus Alabama game where the final was 9-6. That's not fun.
No.